Hello, awesome person. Thank you for being here. My job is to get you to one giant step closer to being a graphics ninja. Now, we're living in an at-a-glance society, so it's very, very important that our proposals, our presentations, our bids, our tenders are always including visual communication, because it's a very efficient way to communicate information. If you don't follow me on the Twitter, please reach out. It's right there on your screen. At the very end of this session, please stick around. I'm going to give you a link to download really cool stuff that you can use immediately after this session to make graphics that look like this very, very easily. It's all easy if you know how, and it takes practice. However, I'm giving you the foundation to do that right now. So there are two steps to building or making visuals in your content. Number one is you can buy it or acquire it, or you can build it. What I have found is that these two work together in order to be successful. Sometimes you're going to buy or acquire it, and sometimes if you can't find it, you're totally going to build it. So let's tackle buying it. What do you do? Well, before we do that, let's understand that there are two types of graphics. So when you buy something or acquire it, you're either looking at vector or raster. Now, vector graphics are SVG, EMF, WMF, AI, EPS at the very bottom of your screen. And raster images are usually PNG, JPEG, TIFF, or GIF. Think of raster as a photograph and vector as editable graphics. There's a lot of benefits to vector-based graphics. So if I zoom into this vector-based graphic, it still looks clean and crisp, because it's resolution independent and has very small file sizes, and it's very easy to edit. So if I click on this graphic and I wanted to change the screen, I could easily change the color of the screen. Raster, on the other hand, is resolution dependent. So if I zoom into it, it looks blurry. It's going to print with jagged edges. And the other thing that we want to realize about raster images or photographs is that they're not easily editable. So if I click on it and I want to change the screen, I'm going to go back here. I want to change the screen. I can't easily do so. When you go to Google or Bing or Yahoo or any place to get your graphics, and you're using it in our industry, you are probably breaking copyright law, because the way the law works, copyright law works in almost every country, is that once you make it, you own the rights to it. If someone else uses it without your permission, you can sue them. The same is true for stuff that you find on Google and so forth, unless it's labeled Creative Commons. Most things are not. And at any point in time, the author, the owner of the image, can rescind the rights for you to use that. So I'm going to give you some places that you can go to get royalty-free images. The other benefit about vector-based, you can do some pretty amazing things if you were to animate them, and they're easily editable, so you can modify things from proposal to proposal, from presentation to presentation, from document to document. So in summary, vector-based graphics, easier to use, resolution independent. Raster images, they're photographs, harder to use, and definitely you typically risk copyright infringement if you get them from the Google, the Bing, or the Yahoo. The other thing I want you to know before you acquire graphics is that there's three styles. The first two styles are relatively old, and that is the traditional style. If you look at it over here, traditional style, that's considered old school. It's also called skeuomorphism. Skeuomorphism basically means it tries to look like reality. So if you create something back in the day, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, if you created something like this, like the photorealistic image or the 3D images, people said, whoa, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? And then that became the style of the time. Well, then came the advent of smartphones, and the user interface got smaller, so everything got simpler. Flat style became the style du jour, because if you have lots of textures and aesthetic embellishments like drop shadows and gradients and things like that, and you shrink it down to 4 pixels by 4 pixels, it looks like a muddy mess. So flat style became the style of choice in recent years. And then in 2016, Google created a new style called material style. Material style is the best of flat and the best of traditional. What it says is sometimes I might need some skeuomorphic aesthetics to make my graphic more effective. but I am not going to add unnecessary graphic embellishment. So the material style is the most modern style. If people are over 40, they typically dig on the traditional style. If they are under 40, they typically dig on the flat style, but all ages like material style. And here's some examples. This is the skeuomorphic style. This is the traditional style. A lot of embellishment, drop shadows, highlights, things like that. This is the flat style, which is very a simplified way of showing aesthetically or information. And then last but not least is the material style, which appeals to the broadest audience, where we have 3D when we need it, but simplified aesthetics, no unnecessary embellishment. If we look at these 4 graphics, they are all in the material style together because it's flat when you don't need 3D, 3D when you need it, and no unnecessary graphic embellishment. So when you acquire your graphics, make sure they are stylistically consistent because consistency breeds trust. Alrighty. So my top 3 places to get free or low-cost graphics. Number 1 is going to be Pexels, and number 2 is going to be Pixabay. What do I mean by that? So if you go to, let's go to, I'm going to go to my web browser. I'm going to bring this up. So we'll go to Pexels first. So Pexels is our free photos and videos. So if you go to pexels.com, and when I say pexels.com, I mean PEXELS.com. If you go there, this is a free website to search for free photos and videos that you can use in your oral presentations, proposals, in your bids, in your tenders, whatever you're trying to do. The other one is going to be Pixabay. When I say Pixabay, I mean PIXABAY.com. And this particular tool allows you to find not only photographs, but also vector images and videos. So it'll help you do that. Very, very professional stuff. The last one is called, let's go here. So we have that for photographs and videos and some vector elements. The last place I recommend is called buildagraphic.com, and it's a PowerPoint add-in. And the way it works is it helps convert your text into professional graphics. And I'll show you what I mean. If you go to buildagraphic.com, you will find it. That particular tool is 99 bucks. So the other 2 are free. This one's $99, and it is well worth the money. And I'll show you why. So bring this up. There's one caveat, one downside to Buildagraphic. It only works on Windows. It does not work on a Mac. I'm on a Mac. How am I running it? I'm running it within something called Parallels. So the way Buildagraphic works is you have your text on a slide. And what you do first and foremost is you chunk your text. So you can chunk it by a paragraph, bullet, or whatever. So I'm going to chunk my text. So let's do that. I'm going to click on it, chunk it by paragraph, and we break it up into bite-sized digestible pieces. The next thing I'm going to do is, if you notice under the Buildagraphic tab, one of your options is to insert graphic. So I can insert a graphic. So what it does is it automatically analyzes all the keywords and phrases on your slide and gives you a vector graphic that represents that information. So for example, if I click here, you'll notice that it has a lot of the keywords and phrases on my slide here. So I'm going to go down to 3, the concept of 3, and you'll see that there are hundreds of examples, hundreds of ways that I can show the concept of 3 elements. So I'm going to pick on this graphic right here, which is a stair-step graphic that shows the escalation in help desk support. So the next piece of text is, we have a 3-tiered help desk solution for computer issues and problems. Our SOP, our standard operating procedures, escalates based on complexity of issue. It is my opinion that those stairs kind of communicate that information. So I don't think I need that. I feel that's redundant. So I am going to simply co-locate the text. I'm going to shrink it down a little bit. I'm going to go to my home tab. I'm going to go right here. I'm going to my home tab. I'm going to decrease font size. I'm going to click on this here. I'm going to decrease the font size a few times, get it down to, I don't know, let's say 16 or 18 point, or let's do 16 point. I'm going to scale the steps up, and I'm going to co-locate the text right next to what I'm talking about. So tier 1, the little step right there, that gets the tier 1 text. Tier 2, that's the second step. That gets Tier 2 step. And Tier 3 gets the third step. It's placed right next to the third step. I'm just going to move this over. So the next thing is I want to put something on the step. So Tier 1 issues are resolved automatically. So I'm going to go to Build a Graphic, Insert Graphic. I'm going to look for Automatically, see what pops up. A whole bunch of stuff. I'm going to click on this graphic. I'm going to insert the graphic. Because it's vector, I can modify it in any way I want. So if this doesn't meet my brand standards or my customer's brand standards, I can quickly and easily modify the colors. I can change the style of it. Let's say I want to make it look like a blueprint. I can give it a blue outline and I can give it a white fill, and all of a sudden it looks like a blueprint. So once I'm happy with it, you can edit it, not edit it, it's up to you. I'm going to shrink it down and simply collocate it on the appropriate step. Next thing is Tier 2. So Tier number 2. Tier 2 issues are resolved via by remote service technician. All right, so let's go to Build a Graphic. Let's see if technician is up there. It sure is. Let's see what pops up. All right, I don't like that. I don't like that. Oh, I like this. So I'm going to put this here, shrink it down, shrink it on down, place it on the appropriate step, and then go to Tier number 3. So Tier 3 issues are reserved by an IT service mechanic. So I'm going to go to Insert Graphic. I'm going to look for mechanic. Let's see if we have mechanic. We sure do. Let's do this. I don't like that. I don't like that. I don't like that. Oh, I like this. So I'm going to click this. I am going to shrink it down and put it on the step. And then boom, I have my graphic. So that is a very fast way to do it. And you can also put these graphics into Microsoft Word. So the secret is that you group the graphics. So I'm going to group the whole thing. I'm going to lasso it simply by clicking on my mouse and dragging over everything on my slide. And I'm going to go to Home. And one of my options is to go to Arrange, which is right here, Arrange. And then I'm going to choose Group. Choose Group. Select a group, and it's selected. And then I'm going to scale it down. So I scaled it down, shrunk it down, so that it's the same size it's going to be as it is in my Word document. So if I have a Word document with 1-inch margins, for example, that leaves me 6.5 inches wide. So if you look at your graphic and you click on the Format tab, right here. And if you notice in the right corner, there are the dimensions. So if I have a Word document and my center column is 6.5 inches wide, my graphic cannot be more than 6.5 inches wide. So I made it 6.35 inches wide. So whatever font size I have in PowerPoint will be the font size in Word as long as I don't scale the graphic in Word. So I'm going to copy this graphic and I'm going to go to Microsoft Word. I'll launch my Microsoft Word file, open up a blank document for this example, and I'm going to paste it. The beauty of doing this is the text is now searchable. So in other words, if someone is evaluating your proposal and they're using automated search for keywords, they'll now be able to search through your graphics. There's more to the tool than that. Just know that it is one of my top 3 tools. And I actually had a hand in making this one because nothing exists like it in the world, and I needed it. And so me and a whole bunch of my fellow Microsoft PowerPoint MVPs, there's like 36 geeks like me in the world, helped create this thing. All right, so let me close it out. Let's see, you can create some pretty amazing graphics. These are all in the material style. So if you look at these graphics, they're all isometric, or they have that modern look and feel to them for creating just about anything. You even got some really cutting edge stuff and some traditional things that you've never seen before to make your bid and proposal stand out. All right, let's keep cranking. I'm going to close this out. I'm going to view, suspend. All righty, let's go back to our presentation. So that is if you decide to acquire or buy your graphics. But what happens if that's not an option? You say, hey, Mike, I don't have a penny. I don't have $1, and free's not an option for me. I need to build everything from scratch. So then you're going to build it when you need to. But in order to build it, you have to figure out why you're building it. So you have to conceptualize the graphic. So the first thing you do when you conceptualize and move toward rendering is you discover. So discovery requires knowing your audience, knowing your message, and explaining or proving whatever point you're trying to make. So audience, what do I mean? So imagine you receive this infographic. Who is the target audience for this infographic? It's going to be people that are interested in being healthy. So once I figure out who my target audience is, then I'm going to say, all right, my audience are people who want to make healthy choices. Then I have to come up with a message that's going to resonate with them. I can't just randomly say, here's our cool stuff. Look at we're ITIL compliant or we're using Scrum. No, I need to give them a message that says, hey, we can create software faster using our agile approach or something like that. So our message should be blindingly obvious in our visuals. In this instance, in this infographic, our message is at the very top of the slide. It is the title. Usually your message is the action caption underneath of your graphic in a proposal, in a bid. It could be your title or it could be your takeaway in an oral presentation or proposal. But if you look here, we are insinuating or intuitively sharing a benefit. So eat this, not that for breakfast, so that you can be healthier. And then, of course, you need to explain or prove it. We need to get to the point. Why should our audience care about our content? For that reason, there must be a motivator. There must be a motivator. If we look at these graphics, they have motivators. So if I turn on my pen here, this is a motivator. Hey, do you want intelligence at a glance? I totally do. Then you need to pay attention to this. Would you like to know the total true cost? Why, yes, I would. Then you would pay attention to this. So the message should be broken up into two parts. A motivator, a reason for your audience to care. And you can have up to 3 motivators, by the way. For example, reduce cost, make things easier and faster. But after that, it's too many. So I recommend focusing on up to 3 benefits. Also, the benefit of that is that sometimes we have different types of audiences. One that's proficient in the technical solution, one that's focused on strategic goals and initiatives. And so different motivators will resonate with different audiences. So do know that when someone reviews or evaluates or makes decisions about your proposal, you have a broad spectrum and you need to appeal to that broad spectrum. And you also need to provide the means. So the motivator is, hey, we're going to stop 65% of fraud before it happens. How will you do that? With Eagle Solutions 3 Clever Keys. If you have proof, do include it in there. Quantitative evidence, numbers have teeth. Just know that oftentimes you won't. When you do, cool, put it in there. Never lie, never make up numbers. So audience, know my audience. What's going to motivate them? Put it in the message. Motivator means M&M. Up to 3 motivators in your message. And then you need to explain or prove it. Because you said, okay, you're going to save 65% of fraud before it happens. How? With 3 clever keys. Well, what are the 3 clever keys and how will it stop 65% of fraud before it happens? So those are the questions. So here, let me show you what I mean. So our message is stop 65% of fraud before it happens using Eagle Solutions 3 clever keys. These are for Eagle Solutions employees who need to explain this information to existing customers. And we need to answer, what are the 3 clever keys and how will it stop 65% of fraud before it happens? And we need to do this succinctly. So that's the discovery process. We need to answer this information in this order as efficiently as possible. Albert Einstein once said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. So it is our job to take even the most complex stuff. If you follow this process, it will A, make it easy for you to explain, B, make sure your visuals are clear and compelling and not confusing, and C, it automatically tells a story. And there's an old saying, facts tell and stories sell. Put your facts into your story and it contextualizes your features. Otherwise, no one cares. All right, so that is discovery. Number 2 is designing it. So now we need to design it. And what do I mean by that? Well, first thing we need to do is chunk, then we assemble, then we visualize. What the heck is chunking? So let's take the example that we started with. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the pieces that I think are most important to the audience. It's your choice as the author of the graphic. Now, another reason why this process is amazeballs and helps so much is because most proposals fail because they're written by the author for the author. We are not our target audience. This forces us or helps us empathize with our customer and tell the story of how our solution helps them. So once I highlight the pieces that are most important, get rid of everything else. This is the most important stuff. This is what I'm left with. So now I have these chunks, these pieces. What do I do with them? The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to assemble them to tell a story. So here's my example. I'm going to take these elements and I'm going to move them around. Think of them as putting them on sticky notes or something like that, or on a whiteboard. And I'm simply going to move the pieces around so that it has a narrative. So I take the 3 clever keys, I put them into Eagle Solutions' existing IT security protocols. And as a result, we stop 65% of fraud before it happens. So that's assemble. The next thing I need to do is I need to visualize it. We're getting really close to a graphic. Really, really close to a graphic. So when it comes to visualizing, I'm going to use a lock to represent existing IT security protocols. Because think about it, when you go to a website and you have a secure, you're on a secure HTTPS website, you have a little lock in the corner that says, hey, we've locked this down, you are safe. What images shall we use for the clever keys? Well, I'm going to use keys. I'm going to go with that metaphor. So let's put it all together. So imagine I'm giving an oral proposal. I'm going to say, hey, we're going to show you how to stop 65% of fraud and theft before it happens. How we're doing that is with 3 clever keys. The first clever key starts protection protocols immediately. That stops 18%. The next one confirms identity and credentials. That stops 28%. And the last one denies inconsistent reports, which stops the remaining 19%. So that is a way to do it. Now I would go into each one of the keys. This would kind of be my agenda slide. For this little section, I would start to talk about each one of the keys on the very next slides or the pages. If this was a graphic, the following graphics would continue to go into that. But there's a problem with this metaphor. The problem is that keys unlock locks. So instead, what I recommend is using this really cool, this is going to be one of your handouts, is something called a graphic. Works is it helps you pick the perfect graphic type for your proposal, for your effort, for your presentation, for even your marketing documents and training documents. So every single proposal graphic fits into one of these categories down the left side: architecture, structure, process or flow, cause and effect, comparison, synergy, relationship. Whatever it is, at its core, those are the only messages your graphic will ever communicate in any effort. Once you determine what that is, you would pick that row. So let's say we chose, let's get rid of this. I'm going to get rid of this card, this. Let's say we chose synergy. So if your information is simple, we would choose from the simple column, yellow column. If it's more complex information, we could choose from the orange. If it's quantitative, we could choose from the blue column. Quantitative is amount, value, or time. You can jump around depending upon your needs. What this does is it saves you a ton of money and time. So let's say we're working on a job together and you said, hey, Mike, I need a graphic to show synergy. And I said, what about a puzzle graphic? What about a Venn graphic? And then we can see it before we make it. So for this graphic, for the lock graphic, I'm going to switch it up and choose a peg graphic. When I say peg graphic, I mean Legos. Think Legos. So let's recast this with a different graphic type and get rid of that whole accidental keys unlock locks metaphor. Let's do it. So I'm going to show you how to stop 65% of fraud and theft before it happens. We're going to do that with 3 clever keys. The first clever key starts protection protocols immediately. That stops 18%. The next one confirms identity and credentials. That stops 28%. The last one denies inconsistent reports, which stops 19%. You put that together, you have the security that stops 65% of fraud and theft before it happens. You could also have the lock build up sideways or the other way so that the text is across the screen. The choice is completely yours. But this is another way to show the same thing. You decide. So the first thing we do is we discover, then we design. The next step is we need to render it. Now, I'm going to assume not everybody has mad skills in the Adobe suite. I'm going to assume that most of us know their way around PowerPoint and absolutely have it, because PowerPoint is relatively ubiquitous, meaning that it's on almost everybody's machine in the world. So everything I'm going to show you can be created with PowerPoint. For example, you can easily, under PowerPoint, you can easily, Mac or PC, doesn't matter, you can easily go to Insert and you can insert charts. So you've got bar charts, line charts, and so forth. Insert a chart, modify it. So any quantitative graphic you can make relatively easy. And there's tons of tutorials out there if you Google them. The secret to using quantitative graphics is you must have your message first. It must have a motivator and a means. You must get to the point. A lot of times, you've heard of the term data analysis. Most graphics in proposals are data. That's not what they need. They want you to have done some of the analysis for them. These are descriptions or what the charts in PowerPoint are best for. Go ahead and take a screen grab of it. This is a cheat sheet I wrote a book called PowerPoint. Absolutely germane to our industry. And this was one of the graphics. I can't share that with you, but I can share this with you. If you use Smartart, what do I mean by Smartart? This is Smartart. So under Smartart, you have, under the Insert tab, Smartart, you have all types of graphics. I recommend never using them, because if you say that your solution is innovative and I see you threw in Smartart, it's going to tell me that you're not very innovative, that you're just using simple, easy to use tools, and you didn't spend a lot of time on your proposal. And I intuit that if you didn't spend a lot of time on your proposal, your presentation, you probably didn't spend a whole lot of time on your solution either. All of this happens really, really fast in the reviewer's or decision maker's brain. But if you must use Smartart, I do recommend formatting it. So you can change the colors, the style, and so forth, so that it doesn't look like your cookie cutter thing. So the left is the before, which is just standard, plopped it in there, didn't think about it, and the right is after. It's not the best, but it is a lot better. What about if you can't find it in Smartart or any of the graphics in there? What happens if you have to make it yourself? Absolutely no worries. Absolutely no worries, because you can. And part of your downloads, I'm giving you step-by-step instructions on how to make something. So I am going to show you right now. And again, this is part of your download, so don't be freaked out when I show you this stuff. I'm going to go pretty fast. So I'm going to draw a circle. Make sure you hold down your Shift key when you draw a circle by going under Insert. I go to Shapes, and then I go to Oval. I choose Oval, and then I click and drag, holding down the Shift key. Because if I don't hold down the Shift key, I can't constrain my aspect ratio. So you must hold down the Shift key so that you have a perfect circle. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Shapes, and I'm going to choose 24 pointed star. I'm going to choose 24 pointed star. Again, I'm going to hold down the Shift key. I'm going to change the color so you can see this. I'll hold down the Shift key. Let's do this color right here. And I'm going to center the two. How do you center the two? You select both of them by clicking on one and shift clicking the second. And I'm going to choose Align. And then I'm going to choose Align Center and Align Middle. So when I do that, it helps me align the graphic. So everything's perfectly aligned. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my reshape node. So in the star, you'll see right here, there's a little tiny dot. And in that dot, it's a reshape node. It allows me to pull or modify or reshape that star. So I'm going to increase the length of that starburst. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select both of these objects. And when you have two or more objects selected, under the Shape Format tab, something new will show up, and it's called Merge Shapes. Merge Shapes is a Boolean function that allows me to forever modify a shape with another shape. It only happens when you have two or more shapes selected. So I'm going to click on Merge Shapes, And one of my options under merge shapes is to intersect. So I'm going to click on intersect, and this is what I'm left with. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to insert, shapes. I'm going to hold down the shift key, draw another oval. I am going to change the color so you can see it. Another oval. And I'm going to, again, center it. Center both of these by going align, center, align, middle. I know they're perfectly aligned. I'm going to select both of them, and I'm going to choose merge shapes. And I'm going to choose, this time, I'm going to choose union. Merge shapes, union. Click on it, and now I have a gear. I want to cut a hole through that gear. What do? I'm going to insert an oval by holding down the shift key. Again, I'm going to center it. Notice there are guides that pop up that allow me to center something. I'm going to just center it this way. Here's a secret. When you're cutting a hole in something or cutting something away, you must select the cookie dough first and then the cookie cutter. Think about it. When you're making cookies, you got to have cookie dough before you can use your cookie cutter. So the thing you select first becomes the cookie dough. The thing you select second becomes the cookie cutter. So click on the cookie dough first, shift click the cookie cutter, choose merge shapes, and I'm going to choose subtract. When I do that, I now have a hole in my gear. With that, I can duplicate it. And again, I believe this is in your downloads. I'm offsetting it. You can animate them very easily. Under animations, I'm going to go to spin. And then you go to your animation pane. And if for any reason they're not in your downloads, you can email me and I'll send it to you. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it 360 degrees clockwise. My timing is going to be slower. I want to go 5 seconds. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my animation painter. What I mean by that is animation painter is like format painter. If you click on an object that has an animation and you click on animation painter, it applies that animation to the other object. So I'm going to click on it right here, animation painter, and then I'm going to click on the other object. But this object, I want to go counterclockwise. So I'm going to click on that object. I'm going to choose counterclockwise as my option because one's going clockwise, the other one I want to go counterclockwise, and I want it to start with the other gear. So I'm going to choose with previous. Start with previous. If I do that and I go to my presentation mode, what I have is interlocking gears that are animating. So if you have to make something yourself, this is a very fast way to do it. You can create some amazing things within PowerPoint. For example, you can make this. These are the step-by-step instructions on how to make it. What about something like this? Or because it's vector, you can easily change the colors. These are the step-by-step instructions on how you make something like that. Or what about this hexagonal then-ish diagram? How would you make that? Step-by-step instructions. So you can make things. If you break it down into basic shapes, you can make it from scratch in either PowerPoint. All of this works in Adobe Illustrator too. If you're an Adobe Illustrator fan, you can totally do it. You can create some pretty amazing things. Let's see here. These are gear graphics, and if you create them, I can show you a secret. If you want to know a secret. So these are gauge graphics, I should say. Notice how the gear is, the needle is easy to move. How did I make that? Well, the secret is I went to insert shape. I'm going to insert an isosceles triangle. So I'm going to insert an isosceles triangle right here. If I were to rotate that triangle, let's make it a different color so you can see it. Let's make it, let's say white. If I were to rotate that, and it rotates around itself. I don't want it to rotate around its center point. So the secret is that I duplicate that object, rotate it or flip it 180 degrees, put it base to base, group the two. I'm going to group them. And then what I do is at the bottom, I'm going to click on it and I want it to be no shape fill, no fill, no shape fill, no shape outline. It's invisible. And now when I rotate it, it rotates around its base. So that's a sneaky little trick. Alrighty. With that in mind, I got a ton of stuff to work with. You have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to paths you can use to move forward, to create amazing, stunning professional proposal graphics, presentation graphics, training graphics, whatever you need it for. If you want to learn more, I'm a geek. I wrote a bunch of books. One's called $1 Billion Graphics. The other one's called A Trainer's Guide to PowerPoint. It's totally relevant to our industry. Here is that URL I promised you at the very end to download the cool stuff. Do know that this is case sensitive. You must capitalize it. APMP, if you're not aware of it, stands for the Association of Proposal Management Professionals. If you are doing business development and you are not a member of APMP, I strongly urge you to look into it. It is a fantastic organization, and they're there to help. I'm a proud member for many, many years and have learned so much from everybody. Please don't hesitate to reach out and email me or call me and leave a message. I'm happy to help you. It is my job, my goal in life, to be of service to people in our industry, to make them even more successful than they already are. Thank you very much. Have an amazing day. Be safe. Bye-bye. Hey, Amjad, I've got a question for you. Actually, I got two. Number one is, how does Zbizlink support graphics in the proposal response?
Zbizlink, it has managed a separate assets area where it, for the organization level, it allow you to upload and manage, maintain your organization level, your images, and all of kind of other graphics that you want to include in your proposal response. So that's the one thing it does. From other side, when you are importing, so when you are writing a proposal response throughout with any part of your proposal, throughout any like executive summary or your solution, it has a component it called the insert from your assets. So it take you to select your images, select your graphics, and include your inside your proposal response. And on top of that, then every graphics, then when you import, it give you some built-in web-based control that you can apply on the graphics, like changing colors or adjusting or making some, reshaping or size changing, like that. These kind of things. It's not like extensive graphics tool, but it has some ability to control that help you to embed inside the content or overflow, or this kind of attributes you can apply.
Makes sense. With that in mind, does it retain the graphics across the organization?
Yes, it does. In Zbizlink, every organization, basically Zbizlink gives a complete workspace to every separate organization when they set up their account in Zbizlink. So that's full workspace is for that organization. And then on top of that, that organization has units which called organization departments and the locations. So they combine together, becomes their distributed components, like region wise, you are in the USA or you are in Australia, or even inside USA, you have a multiple departments. They are linked with the location. And then each user, when they upload their contents, the first default that they see the contents focused with their privileges are for their own identity. But when you allow those groups to search those contents or review or use those content for organization level, then all of those images that individually you uploaded, they also becomes available as part of together as a organization. So you can search throughout, and you can also apply from the organization level all of those images. And it's not just only focused or limited to the images. Even you can have a Word document content with full set of graphics. Some people, they have they are standard organization documents. They included graphics, they included contents, all like PowerPoint, most graphics types contents. So you can even just go in, and as an image, you also select file, and it convert that file in a stream of like a binary stream, and then load the whole contents in without affecting any formatting. So whatever the original formatting you had, so it just you just need to select area specific. Hey, I like I'm executive summary, or I need to import executive summary from my organization assets. So just select the space where you want to import. You just select the mouse and then go in insert from assets, and then it import the whole content of executive summary. Even we have done this like management project management plan, or transition in, transition out, or like processes. So they are our most extensive document contents, maybe like 15, 20, 30 pages content, which we just use throughout with our technical proposal responses. I just go and click file and then import all of those contents without affecting the formatting, including images. Good. Thank you very much. Again, Mike, it was wonderful and very great and positive session with you. And I would love to have another one in the future. And especially, I will contact with you in learning process with the graphics. That's cool.
Cool.